Which Sony zoom lens should you buy? What is good, everybody? It's that one camera guy back at it again with another video for you. This is going to be me explaining as best as possible which Sony telephoto lens you should pick up for your camera. Just to let you know, I go by that one camera guy. If you don't know already, I make tutorials, guides, and reviews on Sony mirrorless equipment. So if you don't want to miss out on the latest weekly videos, make sure you hit subscribe and that bell notification so you don't miss out on the latest content. Let's go ahead and get started. So this video is all about helping you decide which telephoto lens you should buy. I know a lot of you are slowly migrating over to the Sony a7 III. It's happening. Folks are going from Canon to Nikon, they're taking a look at Sony, and the a7 III just happens to be that camera that's really pushing people over to the other side. But with that change and that move, a lot of you are still figuring out, should I adapt glass? Should I buy native? I'll give you just my general opinion, but I will have a video on it later. I highly recommend that you just try to get native glass from the get-go. But I understand that a lot of you are still starting out and you just want to test out the system. I get that. For example, I still have my Canon mount 120-300 f2.8. Love using it on Canon and also really did enjoy using it for Sony mirrorless. However, the performance was sort of like 70 to 80% of what it could do. I don't even think it was even that high. It might have been even less than that. So I would use the MC11 adapter and use this lens on an A9 or A7R III, and it would work all right in some cases. But obviously, if you're working in a professional environment, you probably wouldn't want to depend on its combination. To be quite frank and honest, and I'll talk about it another time, I actually find the Sony 100-400 to be comparable to this one in terms of what I've been able to do. Yes, I'll have to shoot a higher ISO with this one at 5.6, but at least I know the autofocus is going to work, versus with this one, I can shoot at lower ISOs because of the aperture. It's just I have struggles with autofocus with this combination. So I'm waiting for a Sony FE version of this. By the way, for those of you who don't know, once Sigma makes an FE version of this, I can send this in for a mount conversion. So Sigma, please get this on your list. I'll be very, very happy. The first lens we're going to look at is a telephoto lens for Aps-C, which is your crop sensor camera like an A6000, 6300, 6500. So for those of you who are still thinking about it, this is obviously not designed for an A7 III, for example. But this is one of those nifty zoom lenses. If you're from Canon, you know the 55, the 200, or 250. That lens is really good. This one I would say is not necessarily a really great lens in comparison to like the Canon offering for Aps-C. This is more like your budget. It's a stocking stuffer kind of lens. It goes for about $300, and it's one of those things where you just get because you need reach. Okay, can you get good results from it? Absolutely, as long as you keep your expectations within check, right? The lens goes up to 6.3 when you're all the way at 210 millimeters, and I think it's like 4.5 at 55 millimeters. So you can still get some compression with this lens, but just know in lower light conditions, you are going to struggle definitely. You could probably take advantage of this for the most part during daytime sports. So if you're shooting anything daytime sports-wise, or a reasonably late afternoon when the sun is still out, you can use this. However, just know, sharpness-wise, it's not going to be there. You'd have to stop down the lens just a little bit more, and unfortunately, you're going to lose even more light. But this one is just a great starting telephoto zoom lens. Just keep your expectations in check, and you'll be pretty happy if you are an Aps-C shooter and need something to start with. Now, if you have a little bit more money, we're going to take a look at this next lens here. This is the 70-300 G series lens. What I really like about this lens is actually its massive reach and its affordable price point. And when I mean affordable, I mean within reason, right? It's inexpensive compared to the 70-200 f4 and much more inexpensive compared to this one here, the 100-400, which is about $2,500. This goes for about, I don't know, $1,000 to $1,100 now. So what's really great about this one is the 70-300 reach, but also the aperture that it goes up to, which is 5.6 compared to 6.3, with this guy here. I did a test on this, and you can catch the video on it. I was comparing it to, I think, the 7200 f4. It's still a pretty sharp lens when you use it, and you can see some examples in that video, and it's very versatile with its reach. This is a full frame lens, so using a camera like the A7 III, this pairing works exceptionally well if you're going to be shooting with this combination. And like I said, if you do a lot of daytime type shooting and you need a lot of reach, I think this is a good compromise instead of getting the 100 to 400. Obviously, this is not going to work for wildlife stuff, but more general daytime photography when you need that reach. But it's also really great for sports. Shot swim with it, was able to get some really good results with the great autofocusing system in the A7 III and A9, I guess. So definitely one to check out. But as far as features, I do like the fact that you have an autofocus, manual focus switch. You have full to infinity to 3 meters, so you can actually do a focus limiter here to speed it up. You have steady shot built right into a switch, and you also have a focus hold button which you can program to do anything else. All of these things which is missing off of this lens. So very good advantages, and also has a lock option so it doesn't creep. Moving on to the next lens. Now this lens is very underrated. Well, I wouldn't say underrated, but it's one of those lenses people skip because everyone's always going straight to the 2.8 version. This is the f4 version, the 7200 f4, and right away, what I really like about it compared to the 2.8 is that this is much lighter. So if you want to keep your kit light and you want to travel and have a zoom lens, this is the one to go with. It's built pretty solid. It's built like the 7200 f2.8. It's all internal zooming, so you're not going to have anything extending. By the way, when you compare it to the 70 to 300, you are going to have an extended zoom. Okay, so what's really great about this one, everything's all internal. You don't got to worry about it. As far as switches and dials, you got pretty much the same thing. Autofocus, manual focus, full time, and you can restrict the focus limiter there. Steady shot, and also 2 types of modes that you can use, and several focus hold buttons if you're inclined to use those. It does have a 72 millimeter filter thread, in case you wanted to know that. This one is also 72 millimeters. So what is this great with? Well, I would say that this is pretty good for almost any kind of shooting scenario. You could probably use it for portraits as well. Maybe some events and weddings, but you may struggle in lower light conditions with the f4 aperture. I would say if you know most of your shooting situations have some good lighting, I would choose this one over maybe the f2.8. Now this retails for about $1,300 to $1,400 or so, depending on when you get it and where you buy it. But if you had to decide between these two, I would probably, if I know I don't need crazy reach, I would go ahead and get the 7200 f4. You get an extra stop of light gathering capability on this lens over this one in terms of its whole range. So I really prefer this one over the 70-300, and that's what I'm gonna have to say about it. So this is, again, really good for daytime stuff and some slightly lower light conditions, but when it comes to the most aggressive of them, I would avoid it because it's still not enough light. And by the way, teleconverters don't work on this lens. Don't know why, they just don't. Alright, so the next monster is the 7200 f2.8. It's kind of your standard telephoto zoom lens. I really do hope some other manufacturers will produce other versions of this, like Sigma or Tamron, to help have more competition. So hopefully that is in the works. But the shining factor about this lens is the f2.8 aperture. It's going to give you one more stop of light. So what does that really mean? You know, people are like, well, if you're just starting, one stop of light difference from this one is basically 3 clicks on your ISO, for example. It's like the difference between you shooting at 6400 ISO down to 3200 ISO. It's like the difference of you shooting from a shutter speed of 1/100 to 1/200, for example. So that one stop of light can be a big difference for you, especially in your photography. This is the one I would highly recommend for sports photography, weddings, portraits, in terms of just low light stuff if you know you're shooting in those environments. It's still a very sharp lens, and by the way, this is also a very sharp lens, so don't think that just since it's f4, it's not good wide open. It is good wide open, and this is also pretty good too from my experience and having used it. So the last lens I want to go over is the 100 to 400 G Master. Really like this lens, very underrated. I almost didn't get this because it had an f5.6 aperture, but let me go and explain what happened and kind of help some of you who are thinking about this lens in particular. So The 70 to 200, I had this originally, and at the time there wasn't any 400 millimeter option for Sony E-mount. So I went ahead and picked up, for example, the 1.4x teleconverter, which would make this like a 280 millimeter or almost up to 300 millimeter f4 lens. There wasn't anything at that time, with the exception of the 70 to 300, which gives you 300 at 5.6. So in terms of just performance, using this little guy here with this one really does give some decent results. So if you wanted to use this for sports, you wanted to use this for shooting events, and you needed more reach, you could use this with the 1.4x extender and have some versatility. Granted, this is about $500 to $600, and I think at the moment of this video, it's sold out. I don't know what's going on, it's missing. But this combination, these two, really good, okay? You can trust that. But I needed more reach, right? I needed more reach. I said maybe I want to go 400 millimeters at 5.6. So I went ahead and picked up the 2x teleconverter from Sony and paired these up with it together. Now here's what happened. When I paired this up together, and I have a video on this you can check out, the image quality just definitely degraded at f5.6. So this would give me a 400 millimeter at 5.6 with a 2x teleconverter. Now, because of that and the light transmission and the glass in between everything, Sony, I guess, struggled to make a really sharp one-to-one with the setup here. Now, you can stop it down to around f8 and f11, and you will definitely get sharp results with this combination. However, it isn't a combination I would recommend if you were going to go ahead and shoot sports and you wanted really good results. So, in other words, if you need a 400 5.6 reach, in this case, these two would not be recommended if you were shooting moving subjects. If you were shooting still subjects and you can set this onto a tripod, this is perfect. You could shoot at f11, set it on a tripod, you will get some really great results, very sharp results with this combination. But you gotta stop down your lens. All right, so now back to this guy, the 100 to 400. So this has 400 at 5.6 without a teleconverter already, and it's deadly sharp. Very, very sharp lens, especially with daytime and late afternoon photography. I've even shot some low light stuff with it before in the past with the A9, was really, really happy with the results, even at high ISOs. Because when you nail the shot and it gets the autofocus, it actually acquires the subject. Even though it's noisy, if it's sharp, it still looks good to me. But everyone has their own kind of like personal taste with ISO and noise. Mine's a little bit different, okay? So, but anyhow, if you need 400 5.6, this is the way to go, not the teleconverter route. Now, those of you who might be wondering, hey, so what's this good for? Daytime stuff, like I said. You could use it for some wildlife scenarios, but 400, I would assume, is still not enough for a lot of folks. Maybe you can crop with the A7R3, for example. So when you use the 1.4x teleconverter with the 100 to 400, you're going to lose a stop of lights. You're going to go from 5.6 to f8. So I usually will just leave the lens completely at f8. When you're shooting at f8 in lower light conditions, autofocus is going to slow down a bit. So daytime is kind of where this is restricted at. I felt the sharpness was good. It wasn't like amazing, but you're not going to be disappointed, in my opinion, if you were to use this combination with this lens kit. But again, if you need autofocus and you have fast moving subjects, it needs to be daytime with this combination. If not, you're gonna have to crank up your ISO really high to get a fast shutter speed, and then you're gonna kind of lose the advantage you had originally because your photos are gonna get a lot noisier. So I would recommend 1.4x teleconverter with this one if you know you are gonna do a lot of daytime stuff. Now, I haven't used the 2x teleconverter a whole lot with this one. I would say that once you use this 2x teleconverter, you'll be at f11 with this lens. You'll probably need to stop it down a little bit more past that in order to get some decent sharpness. But once you're in that territory of 800 millimeters with this lens with the 2x teleconverter, you definitely are going to want something like the A9 to be able to drive that lens combination quick enough. I found originally like the A7R3 was a little bit slower with the 2x teleconverter with this combo, so you're going to want to look at an A9 to help move that lens. But I am going to test that out later for you guys in a future video, and I think that's going to do it for me with as far as all this information. If you have any questions or you want to test other combos, I know people are saying, can you test out the Sigma 100 to 400, the Sigma 150 to 600? Let me know in the comments below of any of those other options you want me to take a look at, or any other suggestions that you might have. I'll go ahead and rent them out from Lens Rental or something, and if I have time, I'll go ahead and check them out for you. But that's going to do it for me in this video. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on any new videos. And don't forget to drop that like if you're enjoying the content I've been producing. Alright folks, that's going to do it for me. Once again, I'm your host, That One Camera Guy, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.